Well, if this film doesn't make you never want to have kids. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainly Movies. As part of my coverage of the 2024 Toronto International Film Festival, today I'm going to be talking about the 2024 sci-fi drama, The Assessment, which will release in theaters on March 21st. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content, like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and even some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. The Assessment stars Elizabeth Olsen, Alicia Vikander, and Himesh Patel, and was the directorial debut by Fleur Fortuné. Set in the near future, it tells the story of a couple who are about to undergo their 7-day government assessment to determine if they're suitable candidates for parenthood. When you watch a lot of films, you inevitably end up watching a lot of directorial debuts. Some of these debuts are good, while others feel like very obvious starts to somebody's career. But every now and then, you come across one that makes you disbelievingly ask, this was their debut? Well, The Assessment is one of those movies. This is Fleur Fortuné's debut, and it's a bold and very assured first film. It's a moderately low-budget sci-fi film whose stylishness and production design outmatch many of its much more expensive con-specifics. But beyond the film's impressive visual prowess, it's also got a unique and captivating story, making The Assessment not only an entertaining thriller, but also an intriguing sci-fi thought-provoker at the same time. A tall order for any filmmaker, but an especially impressive feat for a first-time director. There's obviously some room for improvement, as there is with most films, but The Assessment is an incredibly strong debut. This movie is set in a utopically disguised dystopian near future. The world as we know it has been destroyed by climate change and war, so resource conservation and societal usefulness are key in this new world, driving the actions of the government and by extension its citizens. Policies and laws control most aspects of life, and there are selection processes for everything, including having kids. It's a resource-intensive commitment, so not just anybody's allowed to do it. Couples are required to go through a rigorous selection process in order to get permission, the final stage of which is an in-person assessment, a 7-day process in which the couple hosts an assessor in their home to assess their suitability as prospective parents. What exactly is involved with the assessment is kept from the couple until their assessment's actually underway. So as not to spoil the surprise, I'll keep it from you too. Suffice it to say, it's a unique process. With some solid sci-fi world building around it, this film's got a great premise that's executed in an intriguing and frequently unexpected way. This film is driven by a trio of performances by Elizabeth Olsen, Himesh Patel, and Alicia Vikander. Olsen and Patel play a couple who desperately want a baby. As a botanist and a VR pet designer, a much-needed profession after the mandated destruction of all real pets as a means of controlling disease and unnecessary resource consumption, they seem like ideal candidates. As is the case with most couples, they've got different parenting styles and priorities, not to mention some baggage that systematically gets dredged up during their assessment. Both characters are heavily involved in the story, but it's Olsen's Mia who's ostensibly the main character of the film, bringing a strong, focused directness to the story. And then there's Alicia Vikander as the couple's assessor, Virginia. I can't say too much without giving anything about the actual assessment away, but I can say that this is perhaps the most demanding and involved role of her career so far. This film asks a lot from her, and she gives it her all, and then somehow maybe even a little bit more. Each of these three characters are individually interesting, but it's their interactions where this film really impresses and intrigues. These interactions are a little bit of everything. Stressful, awkward, unexpectedly funny, uncomfortable, bizarre, diabolical, indifferent. Honestly, it's really hard to accurately summarize what goes on between these people. The Assessment, both the film and the process within the film, is such a unique mix. This movie's primarily a sci-fi drama, with touches of psychological thriller, but it also has a lot of dark humor along with some very bizarre situational humor. I can only imagine the number of takes that were ruined because one of the three actors started laughing at the sheer awkward absurdity of the situation they were in. So this film will definitely make you laugh, but I'm not quite sure if it really qualifies as a comedy. It does not shy away from getting dark, and especially after a certain point in the story, it becomes extremely stressful and viscerally uncomfortable. That said, The Assessment remains a highly thought-provoking film, exploring wide-ranging themes like overreach of government control, imposed societal trade-offs, resource conservation, environmentalism, and parenting. Specifically, what makes somebody a suitable parent. The ideas presented here and the overall massive scope of this film are supremely ambitious, perhaps a bit over-ambitious to an extent. It isn't quite able to pull everything together by the end, but still remains a captivating and memorable story, with enough ideas to leave you thinking long after the credits roll. I mean, it's been over 6 months since the TIFF premiere, and I'm still thinking about this movie. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. The biggest pro is the premise. The idea of near-future government control of things like reproduction may not be a novel concept, but focusing on the procedural aspects of it is pretty unique, especially this film's specific procedural aspects. Like I mentioned before, I don't want to spoil what the assessment actually entails, but it's definitely something. If you've been watching my reviews for long, you've probably noticed that when I put a film's premise in the pros list, it usually means that the actual execution of that premise was underwhelming, sometimes even landing the story on the con side. Well, I'm pleased to say that that's not the case this time. This movie's got a solid story execution too. It's just that the premise basis of it is too good not to include in the pros. The second pro has got to be the performances. There are a few very small side characters that pop into the story for one scene, but really, this film's a three-hander, with excellent performances by Himesh Patel, Elizabeth Olsen, and Alicia Vikander. Patel and Olsen give compelling performances in their own right, but it's the addition of Vikander into the mix that really gives the story its strange and intriguing spin. I can't say much about Vikander's character here without risking spoiling the surprise of what's actually involved with the couple's assessment, but I can say that this film demands a lot from her, and she gives it her all, resulting in some very unexpected and interesting tonally shifting interactions. On the con side, my only real issue is how overambitious this film gets. Again, kinda hard to thoroughly explain since I have to keep a massive part of the plot vague enough to stay spoiler-free, but despite focusing on a single couple and their assessment, this film manages to have a really massive and wide-reaching thematic scope to it. And for the most part, I think it handles it well. The abrupt tonal shifts might be unsettling for some people, as weird as putting it that way might sound, but for me, the overambitiousness is most apparent when the film tries to tie everything together in the end. There's a part of it that feels right for the story, but there's another part to it that felt underwhelming in a sort of unsatisfyingly half-finished kind of way. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying The Assessment or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them, if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give The Assessment 4 out of 5 paws. Fleur Fortuné's feature debut is an incredibly ambitious psychological sci-fi drama that approaches environmental and parenting themes in unexpected ways. At times extremely funny, this is a movie that doesn't shy away from darkness either, providing both entertainment and sustainably grown food for thought. I would recommend The Assessment to people who are looking for a slightly claustrophobic sci-fi story that'll leave them thinking. This is more of a thematic character study than most other dystopian films, so those looking for a big sci-fi adventure will be surprised and probably disappointed by the contained nature of the plot here. But if you're up for it, this film delivers some memorably weird, awkward, funny, and dark stuff. It might not fully stick the landing, but it will stick in your mind. If you liked The Assessment, I would recommend The Pod Generation. This is another recent near-future sci-fi film that focuses on parenthood and a unique reproductive process, presenting some additional themes about the involvement of technology and corporations. If you thought the unique policies of the dystopian future were interesting here, you should check out Can I Get a Witness? As another film set in a future dictated by limited resources, it focuses on a policy not about birth, but rather death. exploring the concept from the perspective of a teen newly hired to witness the execution of the controversial to us policy. And if you'd like another reproduction-focused dystopian film, you might want to check out ZPG, short for Zero Population Growth. This 70s sci-fi film focuses on an overpopulated and severely polluted future, in which a 30-year ban on childbirth is instituted in order to conserve what few resources remain. It's a bit of a schlocky B-movie, but it does share a number of themes with the assessment. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen The Assessment? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie about a mysterious process? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe if you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.